And the difficult task continues ahead. The cleanup has begun and rebuilding is underway for many affected by Hurricane Harvey. There's at least one estimate that it will cost $30 billion to rebuild homes in the Houston area. And a good deal of that burden falls on insurance companies like Allstate. Joining me right now is the chairman and CEO of the Allstate Corporation, Tom Wilson. And Tom, it is good to see you again. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Good morning, Maria.
You are also just back from Houston. What did you see? What can you tell us, Tom?
Well, first, what I saw was really a very widespread and major disaster. Each individual has their own story, obviously, but there are hundreds of thousands of people who've been displaced. So that is, terrible. You have to feel empathy for those people. Their homes, their possessions, their memories have all been waterlogged and thrown out. What you can feel good about is America. Like, you come back thinking, we're a really prosperous country. As you fly over Houston, you realize how much money has been created by our economy and how many people have really good lives. And then when you get down on the ground, you see volunteers everywhere. So outside of all the houses, people have thrown out all the water-soaked stuff. That's because their neighbors, churches, their golfing friends, their relatives all came over and helped them get that stuff out of the house so mold doesn't grow.
Does the number $30 billion sound right to you in terms of the cost of this?
I think it's really too early to tell what the cost will be, because there's two parts of the cost. First are the homes you talked about, and that obviously will be extensive because a lot of homes have been hurt. Then there's the infrastructure, which is another part. The difference between a hurricane that has a lot of wind damage and this hurricane, which had mostly flood damage, is the visuals are much less dramatic. So when a wind event happens, roofs get torn off, houses get knocked down, trees come down, bridges get ripped up. And when there's rising water, it just goes up and then it comes down. So the structures are still standing. So it's really hard from a visual inspection to determine how much it will cost to fix it.
Well, what do you make of the fact that so many people did not have flood insurance? So help us understand why so many people have lost everything now because they have no insurance.
Right, it's going to be a problem, and it's going to be a difficult problem to resolve over the next 4 or 5 months. First, so private insurance companies like Allstate, if your car gets caught in a flood, we cover that. And we have many cars that we're already talking to customers about either getting them dried out or getting them replaced. And that process is relatively easy for us to do. We have about 3,000 people right now taking care of all of our people in the whole area impacted by Hurricane Harvey. Some remote, some on site. So that's the auto piece is relatively straightforward, handled by the private market. As you mentioned, the houses are really covered by the federal government. And only about 50% of the people in some of the coastal areas that got hit hard by Harvey, by wind, were covered. If you get to Harris County, where Houston is, it's less than 15% of the population. So 85% of the people are going to be coping with losses that were not covered by insurance because they didn't purchase it. And that's where it's going to get hard. Now, what we're doing is we're working with our customers to help them understand how to access the federal government programs. Some is aid, some is insurance. For our customers, if they have a federal policy, we'll actually adjust it for them and work with them to make sure they get their home rebuilt. But it's going to be a difficult situation over the next couple of months as people struggle to find the money to rebuild their homes.
And on top of all of that, now you've got to deal with Hurricane Irma. What are you doing in terms of Irma right now, as we know that Florida and Puerto Rico have already declared states of emergencies?
Well, I met with our catastrophe response team yesterday when I was down in Houston. We're already getting set up for Irma to hit the East Coast. It's not clear where yet, but we'll pre-position people. Right now we're pre-positioning people into Florida because that looks like it's most likely where it could hit. But as you saw from the weather report, it could go south and head over into the Gulf. Or it could go north and anywhere up along the East Coast. So we stay flexible. We try to get people in multiple locations, so when it happens, we're there for them ahead of time. But Hurricane Irma is big, it's strong, and if it hits Dade County, we're going to have another major disaster on our hands.
Does it feel like this is a different kind of hurricane season to you already? Is this going to have a big hit on, for example, earnings?
Well, it will not have a big hit on earnings for us. We buy insurance on our insurance called reinsurance, and we have a $500 million deductible, and then we split 5% of the losses above that. So the first $500 million is a hit to our bottom line, but that's in contrast to $22 billion of capital. So this is not a financial issue for Allstate. We do have to rally our troops and make sure we get everybody to the right place.
Sure.
But we're good at that. In fact, we're always early. As it relates to the whole country, you know, we're subject to all kinds of this, whether the tornadoes in Joplin, which you covered, or it's Irma, or Harvey, or Katrina.
Right.
And we need to do a better job figuring out how to deal with these things in advance as a country, because what we tend to do is the government comes in and spreads money out afterwards, and that's not the right way to do it.
And I know you've deployed people throughout Texas and as you just
Yes.
said, Florida, but you're also using drones.
We are, yeah. So particularly for when we want to adjust a house, rather than having somebody get in a car, drive to an area, climb up on the roof of a house, we can fly a drone out there. It can look at the house, and we can do all the damage assessment and settle the claim with somebody over the phone using the videos, which makes it faster. They
Wow.
get the money right away. Sometimes we have to send people out because you can't see everything from a drone. But we're also using it to try to help people see if they don't know what's happened to their house and they have to leave and the street's flooded. We can help them see what their house looks like.
Just incredible. Tom, good to have you on the program. Thanks very much for weighing in here.
Thank you, Maria.
Tom Wilson joining us as the
Thank you.
CEO of Allstate on this incredibly devastating story.